This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
If your fashion wish list lives rent-free in your brain, you need to be on Poshmark. With Poshmark, you're shopping millions of listings from thousands of closets, each curated by someone with their own style. Vintage finds, designer pieces, and everyday staples all in one place. Search for your favorites or let the discovery come to you. Poshmark makes it easy to find what you actually want to wear at prices that feel like a quiet win. Download the Poshmark app today and use code PODCAST10 when you sign up to get $10 off your first purchase.
It up great. It's from Einstein, so you know it has to be good. It says that wisdom is not a product of schooling, but a lifelong attempt to acquire it. And I think that just really captures the last 2 days of this summit. It was great. There were a lot of great speakers, a lot of great people there. And coming down from Virginia, you know, that was a long trip for me to make, and I think it was well worth the time.
Absolutely, man. And there was, you know, I know this show's not about internet marketing, and the conference wasn't all about internet marketing. It was really about finding your passion and then being able to do what you want to do with your passion and be able to make a living from it. Plus, there was also a lot about changing your habits, which is all about, you know, a swift kicking ass. I mean, that's one of the things that we talk about, you know, how I kicked Diet Coke, my 20-year addiction. We talked a couple episodes about that, and I'm staying strong and not going back to the Coke.
Yeah, and I'm still doing my push-ups every day, and I have to say, you know, it felt great to see that cycle on there, the 3 steps of creating a habit. It works. It's you know, the trigger or the cue for the habit,
right? The
actual habit itself, the action, and then a reward. So every morning for about the last 6 weeks, I've been waking up, turn my coffee on. And as soon as I turn my coffee maker on, I hit the ground and I start doing a set of push-ups. That coffee maker is the trigger for me.
Now that was in a discussion by John Lawson, and John Lawson's famous for eBay, you know, mm-hmm. And he started out. It was really a good presentation. I like that guy a lot. He started out with how he had scored some Elton John tickets back in 2000 or 2003?
I think it was around that time. I mean, he was a corporate worker.
He was IT. He was an IT guy.
Yeah, and you know, not really happy with his job because he got these Elton John tickets for $75 a piece. I think it was maybe in '97. Was it that? I don't remember exactly.
Oh, maybe it was back that far. You're right.
It was back a long time ago. But so he got these tickets for Elton John. He was a big fan. Paid $75 a piece, which, you know, back then was a lot of money, much more than it is today. And his work told him that he couldn't go because even though it was a weekend, there was some project going on. It was all hands on deck, and he had to cancel his plans, which really made him mad. But what made him glad was when he saw that not only did he make his money back, but he made profit. I think he sold those 2 tickets for close to $1,000.
Yeah, he said what was the last. He was like, you know, he put it out there, and you know, he was like, okay, I'm going to get my $120 back, right? And then it was $130. He's like, okay, cool. I'm going to score like $20 on this. I'm happy because he didn't even know he could sell tickets online, you know. Because he thought basically he was going to be, he had to stay for the weekend because he was going to go up to New York from Georgia. And his boss told him, you're not going to go anywhere because we need all hands on deck for our IT, backup database, whatever they were doing. So he was like, all right, let me sell these tickets. So the prices keep on jumping from, you know, 85, 100, 120, 130. And then he goes, and I waited another hour before to close the auction, and they really started jumping up. And he said about the last, 20 minutes or 5 minutes?
I think it was the last 5 minutes.
5 minutes. All of a sudden they were like jumping up, and he was like, I think you're right. Any $800 to $1,000 somewhere around there.
And that's when the light bulb went off in his head. And he said, you know what? I can do this. And he said he went immediately over to his mother's house and started saying, hey, Mom, you don't use this. I'm going to take it. I'm going to sell it. and it started, he really used that as a stepping stone and started selling bigger and bigger products. And he started about doing a hustle. And back then, and I guess this exists to this day, back then, selling printers was a big deal. And the money really wasn't in the printers, it was in the ink. So he would wait until these big, box stores were ready to sell printers, had advertised specials on them. He would bring them home, open them up, take out the ink, and then put it on eBay and sell it as a new in-box.
Open box item.
Yeah, open box.
So he would make money from the ink and from the printer.
Right.
And
I think they had rebates as well.
Yeah, so they got the rebate. So basically the printer was free for them, right? So they they sold the printer just a little bit below cost, like maybe 20% off. Yeah. They sold that. Full value for the ink. And they just repeated that, and they would meet at the Waffle House on Saturday night. Wait for the like 2:00 in the morning. They get the Sunday paper would come out, and they would check all the ads, and they would hit those box stores, and they made relationships. All the guys knew. They'd put them to the side. Maybe they hooked them up with something, and they had a racket going.
Yeah, and what's really funny about this is that he kept on changing his products, kept on. Building profits. And then he really hit gold with ELMO. And I forget exactly how much money he made off of ELMO, but
he said he sold them for $300. Buy it at now. So he bought the ELMOs at $29.95. Right. He knew that he saw a news story, knowing that Tickle Me Elmo was going to be short supply for Christmas. He bought them all, sold it for $300. And he said all the grandmothers right before Christmas. I don't think he put it up until 5 days before Christmas.
Yeah, he held on to them and then advertised it. Say, we will guarantee that you get your Elmo by Christmas. $300. Pay. What's your credit card number?
Yeah, and they paid.
Yeah, but I think it was a good example of people who really started with nothing and kept on reinvesting their profits. Kept growing their business. It made something truly out of nothing. That's the American story, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And this guy's gone on to. He's the biggest eBay seller there is, and he even now the eBay has rebranded themselves, and the executives that work at eBay don't even know about the stuff that eBay used to do, like it's certain kind of auctions and so forth. So they consult with him so he can explain, what's going on.
Right.
And he's been, the other thing is that he's learned how to drive traffic using social media. So, he's very popular for that. He's been on TV all over the place and, he's living large. And during this time, that what we bring up with the habit is he used to weigh 270 pounds or 280 pounds. He was a big guy.
Yes.
And he dropped down, I don't know what he weighs now, but he
dropped 120 pounds or
no, not 120.
But didn't he? I mean, he was.
No, he's not. No.
He's not skinny, but he's a pretty big guy.
120.
I mean, he's a tall guy.
You talk about 220 or not 120? He was a.
No, he dropped 120 pounds.
Oh, dropped 120 pounds. Okay, I thought you meant he dropped to 120 pounds. I was like, no way, man.
Yeah, I mean, he learned about habits, how they work, and use that to his advantage.
And his weakness, much like my own, he said that it was the salty foods that would get him. So he would sit down and watch the Housewives of Atlanta. And, he says as soon as he heard that music, it caused a trigger. And he went and got some
potato chips or nachos and salsa. And what he did is, what we learned too is that you can't really unlearn bad habits. You have to replace them. Replace the salsa and chips with celery. But lots of really good speakers and great people.
There was also Sean Platt was there about writing ebooks. And this guy has dominated the fiction market with ebooks and Kindle.
Right.
Right. And I mean, it's just amazing how, he told his story about how he was they had bought a preschool, him and his wife, right? And he always had this dream of being a writer, and how many times he tried and failed, right?
No, I don't think he had any dreams of ever being a writer. He never had that ambition. He was an entrepreneur. He dropped out of high school, but he was always enterprising, and even in grade school, he would sell things on the playground. In fact, he mentioned how he would buy G.I. Joe dolls.
Oh, that's right. And then make mutants out of them.
Make mutants out of them. Take them all apart, make mutants out of them, and sell them for twice the price.
That's a guy after my own heart.
And by the time he was in high school, he had saved up $1,200, I think, in his checking account or savings account, and he was a very enterprising guy. So he bought a little flower cart and started selling flowers, and that's how he met his wife, who was a school teacher, and they I guess started going out, got married, and
that's right, because he made it very specific that his teacher had told him that basically he would amount to nothing, right? And
yes.
He had bad grammar and so forth, and then he was like, and I married a teacher.
Right. So I forget exactly the circumstances, but they had a child, and they wanted to stay together and raise the child, so they opened a preschool in order to stay together to raise their child. But he said when the child graduated from preschool and went to kindergarten, it's like his best friend left the preschool, and it wasn't cool anymore. Right. So he wanted to do something different,
right.
And it was his wife who suggested that he start writing. In fact, I think it was during that time they still had the preschool. The wife said, "You have nap time, an hour every day, and for that hour every day, at least for the next few months, I want you to sit down and just write. Just go in there and write something." And she thought it was really good, and she had a lot of confidence in him, and confidence he didn't even have in himself. So he started writing, and
he failed, right? It wasn't his first thing a bomb, and then he said that he had went to internet marketing, writing SEO articles and copy in order to survive.
Right.
And since I think he was doing like 20 SEO articles a day, because they're not the most, they're just keyword filled articles. So they're not like a lot of research that has to go into them. So he could crank them out, but he learned how to write fast by churning out all those SEO articles.
Right. And so over time, he's developed his writing skills, as well as he's developed it sounds like a network of other authors that he writes with. And they not only do nonfiction work, but he loves fiction. And he found that he was very passionate about writing fiction, science fiction. And was it the Unicorn Western?
Unicorn Western.
That he said he just loves. It wasn't popular. It didn't really sell, but he's just loves that book.
But they're crushing it with Alien Invasion. They figured out that Amazon, uses keywords just like Google, and Alien Invasion was being searched for, right?
Right.
And so he decided, well, hell, let's just make a book called Alien Invasion with a title. It wasn't very catchy, but it got all the hits. So that's how he sold books. And they do the whole series on other keywords. So they're just racking in the dough hand over fist.
Yeah.
But they're writing good books. His goal is to be like the next Stephen King. And everyone that knows the guy says they don't doubt it at all. Because
right.
he doesn't use a pen name. So because he knows, right? Because he said that he wants to, even though he knows that a pen name would maybe make it a little bit more niched and allow him to make more money. Right. But he wanted to build his tribe and his name, so he figures he's in for the long haul. He's planning in 10 years. By 10 years, everyone's going to know his name. It's going to be a household name.
Right. And, really the whole point, again, of this summit is about lifestyle design and how to create a lifestyle that really suits your passion, something that you're passionate about, something that you want to wake up and just do every day, that you live with passion. And I am all for that. And, it's just a fantastic couple of days here. But it was more than just, and Sean Platt, I hope I got his name right. Fantastic. I mean, so motivating. And I think there's no easy path to take to success. And you have to define it. You have to really want it, and you figure out a way to get it done when you really want it.
And if someone is interested in writing Kindle or ebooks, he did give away some tips. He said basically the title is the most important, having a good title. And second to that is having a good cover. So, you definitely want to spend your money and have a professionally done cover if you make a Kindle or ebook. And he also, on his, there's an author page, and he made sure that all his books are listed there on his author page at Amazon. And he also specified, if you're going to make, even if it's a free book, always make sure that on the first page, for the preview, that you have an offer page there for an email opt-in. And he also said put it on the last page as well. So if someone's doing a preview, even if they're just, people checking it out, they can still check out his website and get on his list. Because, everyone knows in internet marketing and anything you sell online, the money is in the list. So that's one way that you can develop and build your lists.
Yep. Yeah. For me, I know the summit was a little technical. I mean, there were some technical aspects and really, I guess, practical advice for people who want to create an ebook or do something online and create a business. And here on a Swift Kick in the Ass, we like to talk about creating positive personal change in your life. And we try to do that with very bold honesty and brutal honesty sometimes. But, to me, this is one of the takeaways that I have from the summit was that everybody has a story to tell. And they were saying that everyone should go out there and write a book and share with others about their life experience, because we can all learn from each other. And I think that's a really beautiful takeaway, because it's true.
Tell them the question that you asked, and then when JB picked up the mic and gave you an answer, but tell them what the question was that you asked.
The question is, when you feel like you have a story to tell, and I certainly do with my father passing away several years ago, after he died, I came back home and I just started typing away on my computer. It was really just a brain dump of all the different things that my dad taught me throughout my life and people that I knew. And as I went through this process, it was very cathartic. I felt so good about getting it, out of my head onto paper, stopping those thoughts from bouncing around. And it was just a very healthy thing for me to do at the time. But where I really ran into struggles was getting it organized. And JB created an outline.
Right, which he had learned from Hay House, because JB Glossinger has a book deal with Hay House. So they coached him. And so, they basically have a formula for their books that they have their authors write. So he broke down the formula as basically have 40 to 60,000 words for a book, right? That's what your book should be.
Yes. And he said that basically it amounts to 8 chapters.
Right. And they use an outline framework in order to get that 8 chapters, right? And they use they write in a present tense story-like fashion, right? And like you're there, right?
Right. He says start it out like you're there. He says it might be. He said in my case it might be painful, but start back when I'm with my dad in hospice as he's dying.
Right, and that should be like 500 to 1,000 words. Right there.
And kind of set the scene. And he talked about the importance of telling a story, because we're all interested in hearing stories. It makes it interesting, and we can apply it to our own experience.
So, and it basically the breakdown, it's kind of repetitive, but that 8 chapter should be one story followed by 3 points, right? 3 subtopics.
Right. And what you want, and really what that is the takeaways for the reader. What do you want them to understand and take away from that? For me, I wrote for 6 months after my dad died. I have a lot of different stories, and I've been, as I said, struggling with getting that organized. So I'm really itchy to get back to Virginia where my writings are and sit down and get that organized, because I think my dad had a great story to tell. His life was an amazing story, and I hope to share that with you all one day.
And the other thing, there was a internet marketer there. He wasn't on the agenda, right? But they threw him in, and he was very good. I think it was Jay Berkowitz. Was that his name? From the
I believe
IM.
so.
And he did. I think it was his website was 10 Golden Rules. And his thing was that everyone now for SEO is searching using their phone.
Yeah.
And so he called it Siri search. Because they turn on Siri and they say, Siri, what's the nearest restaurant? So he said that all your blog articles and everything that you're putting out, your content, should be answers to those questions.
Right. And what he did also, he said, in years past, the Google algorithm was not that great. You had to be very specific in what you asked for. And when you asked for something and you were very specific, it still really didn't give you what you wanted. But that algorithm over the last 10 years has really developed to a point to where it can answer your questions, just like Siri. So if you're looking up something, it's always good to just ask it as a question.
Right. And he also specified the 95% rule, which is more than 95% of the people on a certain topic. So write about that topic.
Yeah. I know Tom and I really struggle a lot with this as far as we don't often give ourselves credit where credit is due. Chances are something that 95% of other people don't really know. And that, I think, is the beauty of the ebook and of podcasting and new media, to be able to share your own story. And people will be interested in that, because we can all learn from each other. Absolutely.
That was probably that was pretty much wrapped up that day, right? That was Friday. That was for us. It was yesterday. But then they had a surprise guest that wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be at another event out in Vegas, and it was Randy Gage. And Randy Gage it was amazing.
Now, I knew nothing about Randy Gage before this meeting, and I have to say he was incredible. In fact, so incredible that I actually took my credit card out of the wallet and pre-bought his upcoming book, which is called Unleashing the Mad Genius. Is that what it's called? I didn't write that down.
I think so. It's close enough.
But it's how do you get your story out? I mean, each and every one of us has a story to tell, and he offered some very practical advice about how to do that. And he uses an hour of his time, an hour a day, to just sit and think. Just think about things. Have a piece of paper, turn off your smartphone, turn off your computer, any distractions, a notepad and a pen, and kind of just sit there and think. And if you're looking to change your life, I couldn't think of a better way to really do that, because we get we have so many competing thoughts these days. We have so many different distractions, and it's very hard to get focused. But there is something to be said about writing your thoughts down, getting them down, getting them out of your head so they're not just bouncing around causing damage. And I know that happens with me all the time. As soon as you take that physical action of writing it out, it helps clear your mind. and it can help get you focused.
Right. And I wanted to verify the title for the book because I didn't have it in front of me. John, you kind of put me on the spot, but it is Mad Genius. That's Randy Gage's newest book, and it's a manifesto for entrepreneurs.
It's coming out next year.
Yeah, and he was saying it's for artists. He sees entrepreneurship as an art.
And that's a great. I'm glad you mentioned that. In my opinion, we are all artists, and what I mean by that is that we all have a need to express ourselves creatively, and you could be a mechanic and still be an artist through your work. You can express yourself creatively through your work. You could do that as a ballet dancer, as a mechanic, as a writer, as no matter what you're doing. A scientist could be considered an artist, where you're expressing yourself creatively.
Right. The other tip that he said that was very similar to that is he says once a year he takes all the books and CDs and DVDs and self-help books that he's bought over the last year. He throws them in his car. He drives down to Key West, rents a room for like 4 days, and he reads them. And he goes through, and if the first chapter or two doesn't grab his attention, he throws it to the side and leaves it for the cleaning lady. But he says that's how, he says he gets more knowledge. He says you have to take that time to learn. You have to continue to be a self-learner.
Yeah, I think it's just it's lifelong learning approach, right. Really. And what was very interesting to me from this summit is how many of the speakers stated that they did not graduate high school.
Quite a few. I mean, because we had, I think it was Matt from Saigon Kick.
Yep.
He didn't graduate high school. The girl from Vixen, that was another rock
bass player from Vixen over there. We were rocking out with Vixen.
Yeah. She brought her guitar up on stage and was jamming, and she played a Queen melody, "We Will Rock You," right?
Yep. But it's whether you go to school or you don't. I think oftentimes that we don't really learn how to succeed in school. We learn how to be good employees.
Right.
We learn how to follow rules, and we get programmed through.
That's where schooling originally came from, the industrial age, right? In order to teach you to be a good employee, just like you said, or a good factory line worker. So times have changed, but a lot of times the education has
I don't think the education has caught up. Now, when I went to school, and I have advanced degrees, and that does not make me successful whatsoever. I looked at school as a learning experience and an opportunity to learn how to learn. And I don't necessarily think a lot of people get that out of school these days.
No.
But you don't need a college degree or even a high school degree in a lot of cases that we saw at the summit to be successful. These guys, Randy Gage did not graduate high school, and he's a multimillionaire.
Yes.
And he was there really not because he had to be. He wasn't being paid to be there. He was there because he wanted to be there, and he wanted to share his knowledge. And that was really his reward of knowing that he's helping others. And he's at that point in his life where he can do that.
Well, he actually said he's retiring from speaking. He's, world famous speaker, was making $75,000 per speech.
Right. For I think a full day.
For a full day. And like $35,000 for
an hour.
For an hour.
And he was turning down $35,000 gigs for speaking for an hour. And he said from his background, he came from a background
like a blue collar. His parents were blue collar workers.
Right. So throwing away an opportunity to make $35,000 in an hour, he said his mother would have slapped him in the next week. But so it's not about the money. It's about the growth and the sharing. And he said that when he first started, and he was very hungry, he did get a lot of he fed off of the applause of the audience.
He said his ego, his ego,
and it fed his ego. But through that process, he also learned a lot about himself, and he learned that over time, not to need, that not he learned how to not feed his ego, or learn the reasons why he needed to feed it, and through that was able to establish much closer and intimate relationships than he ever could before, because it was always take. But over time, he followed his passion and evolved and really transformed.
And I felt bad. In fact, I was talking to someone before the show, and I was like, I don't know about this guy because, I thought I had heard his name before, and I thought I'd heard him on a podcast, which I did. After I listened to him, I was like, oh, I know exactly who he is. But when you went to his webpage, he was sitting there on his Lamborghini, and you usually picture internet marketing scamming people that have, take a picture of a nice sports car and a rich house in the back. And that just, to me personally, that turns me off. So I didn't give it a chance. I was just like, it's probably just some, multi-level marketing, because I know he had done some of that,
right.
Not really something for me. But he was completely opposite of that. And I was blown away. And the girl that I was talking to about, I even went up and said, I apologize, because, I jumped to a conclusion of who he was based on the marketing on his website, because that was not who he presented on stage.
Yeah, it was just really beautiful. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot here,
right.
But what was that last question that he was
the
asked?
last question, they were like, what would you do? What would you go if you could have a time machine and you could travel back into DeLorean back to when you were 15 years old? What would you tell yourself? And
that was just so beautiful and honest. And he basically told himself, he would say, you know what, 15-year-old self, you're not the most handsome guy. You've got buck teeth. You've got strange nose. Your teachers are telling you that you're no good, and life is telling you that you're no good. And I'm just here to tell you that hang in there. It's going to be okay. Just keep on following your dreams and
be who you are.
And be who you are. And don't be afraid to be who you are. I'm not often moved like that. But I have to say that was the best closing for a presentation I've ever seen.
And it wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't rehearsed. Just someone out in the audience just asked him that out of the blue.
Right. Last question of the panel, and they were going to move on, and just such a perfect way to end that.
Thanks for listening. We're breaking this episode up into two parts because the episode ran so long. There are so many great takeaways from the Lifestyle Design Summit, and you would have had to spend hundreds of dollars in order to get these takeaways. So I hope that you can check out swiftkickinass.com and make sure you check out part 2, which will be released shortly. Thanks for listening. Peace.